What was your best "is this serious" moment? Story 1. When I was a professor, I had someone leave a midterm to go their girlfriend. He raised his hand about 2 minutes into the exam, said he needed to let his girlfriend into his dorm room. Could he leave? It was a series of essays, not a lot you could blatantly cheat on, so I told him, "You are an adult, you can do whatever you want, but you only have 75 minutes to take this exam, so use your time wisely." Guy left, comes back 5 minutes before the end of class, high-fives a friend, scribbles something, hands it in. He failed it. I mean, he didn't answer most of the questions. When I handed it back, he was shocked. He interrupted my lecture to argue with me, telling me I said he could leave. Yeah, you can leave, but that doesn't mean you automatically pass a test. Then he cried, like loud, head-on-the-table sobs. He dropped my class and called me a c***. I don't like people. Wait a minute, how the fuck did he translate, "Yeah, sure, you can leave, but it's probably dumb," into, "Yeah, sure, you're free from all the consequences of your bad decisions"? Some people are just not college material. Story 2. I used to work at the register of my college campus store. People mostly came in to buy energy drinks / gum or whatever, but you could also buy sweatshirts and even computers. But given most people bought only one thing, we didn't have carts or baskets anywhere for shoppers. Anyway, one day, a woman comes in, a student's mom I'm guessing, and asks me for help to reach a sweater on the top shelf. I grab it for her and go to hand it to her, but she motions at me to hold on to it. She proceeded to walk around the store, grabbing several items and then giving them to me to hold. She literally shopped for like 10 minutes, using me as her personal shopping cart. Luckily, I had a coworker in the store on the same shift, so he was able to handle the registration. At the end of this whole ridiculous segment, she got a message on her phone, read it, and said, "Oh, you know what? I actually have to go meet my son. I'll come back later to get the things I need." And then she left, and I was left standing there with an armful of random shit that I then needed to go put back one by one. Like, come on, woman. Edit. I was an 18-year-old kid who was pretty excited to have a job to begin with, and was scared of losing it from being rude to a customer. I definitely spent some solid time in the shower thinking of how I would have handled it differently. Story 3. This was my first year working at Spirit Halloween. By the way, I was 20 years old. Just a couple of days before Halloween, a girl around my age came to the dressing room with a typical college girl costume. That's all I'll say. She says something like, "Oh good, we're about the same size. I'm in a rush, so I wouldn't have time to find an associate to help me." I just kind of smiled and took the bag from her, like what the hell does that even mean? I unpacked the costume, leave the accessories, and put it in a basket to carry to the dressing room. She looked really confused, so I just asked her to follow me and I'd get her a dressing room. I wish I was making this up, but this girl says to me, "Why would I go back there for you to change?" I can't even remember exactly how I responded because I was so confused, but it was something along the lines of, "You try on the costume yourself so you know how it fits you. An associate doesn't do it for you." And this girl had the audacity to be mad at me for saying that. Her response was basically, "Well, I don't want to have to get out of my clothes and change into the costume, so it isn't worth my time. That's so unsanitary to have a bunch of people trying the costume on instead of you just doing it, so I don't even want it anymore." Followed by her storming out. Story 4. Me and my friend, both around 14 at the time, snuck some of my dad's whiskey while my parents were out. We each had a few sips from the bottle, did the obligatory, "Ah, it burns," and that was about it. At first. A few minutes later, my friend starts acting really drunk and crashing into walls, falling down and slurring his speech. I'm thinking there's no way this kid is drunk, as we had like 25 milliliters of that whiskey. I don't even feel anything except the lingering little burn in my throat. He's gotta be faking it. Either way, he starts dry heaving, smashed a lamp, then went toward the TV like he was going to grab it. I had to literally bear hug him while he fought like he was resisting arrest. He was foaming at the mouth and screaming, and wouldn't you know it, just like that, he sobered up and relaxed. So in the span of 5 minutes, he got drunk on a sip of whiskey, wrecked my house, fought me like a wild animal, then sobered up. Story 5. I worked at an arcade/bowling alley combo that served food like a full restaurant. My position had me deliver the food and take the dirty dishes to the back. So there's a group of like 6 people bowling, and they ordered our sampler platter that had a little of everything from the appetizers menu. I bring this platter out and set it down, asking if there was anything else they needed. Without really looking, this woman says, "We're good." I begin to turn around, and this woman grabs my arm and yanks me towards her like I was her kid and says, "Where the are my chicken wings?" In disbelief of what was happening, I paused, looking at her, and then at the platter, eventually saying that they were right there, in this little basket on the platter. She lets go, but her skeptical expression was saying like she really didn't believe the wings were there. If I didn't hate working there and my shit was any further from being over in 10 minutes, I would have spoken to a manager. But I didn't care enough to stay to get it sorted and just wanted to leave. Yeah, man, I swear, working in the food industry is insanely bad. Generally, most people are normal, but you get to see the crazies. I used to work at Subway in my teens, and a man reached over the glass to get in my face and yell at me for putting mayo on the wrong side of the bread. Story 6. My wife and I got into an argument. She was acting irrationally. Basically, she thinks she is a mind reader and thinks anytime I am not in a good mood, it's because I am angry with her. So she was angry with me for having a bad day at work. She said I was always angry with her and she was sick of it, and she wanted a divorce and to move out. I had like a brief out-of-body moment where I visualized myself married to another woman, happy and with kids. So I said that in that case, we should have a divorce, not thinking she was serious. She is moving out in mid-June now, and I am really looking forward to it. I didn't realize how much I wanted it until she brought it up. Story 7. Mine was when we went out drinking with 4 of my friends from college and played Never Have I Ever at a bar. A friend of mine, let's call her B for B, knew something about me that I was very embarrassed about, and it made me anxious even thinking about. B knew this too. So naturally, she brings up this very specific thing in the game, then looks at me directly, making it obvious for everyone at the table that I've, in fact, done this thing. This hurt me, but was not actually my "is this bitch serious" moment. It came afterward, when another friend realized how uncomfortable I was, so to keep the game going and move on from me, she did the same thing with B, telling the table something that B has done. Long story short, B flipped out in the middle of the bar and started yelling at my friend for being rude and exposing her to all of us, humiliating her, etc. This might not sound that irrational from her side, but the catch is that we all knew about B's thing because she already told us and other classmates about it numerous times, whereas with mine, she was the only person who knew. Needless to say, we are no longer friends with B after that night. Reply 1. The same thing happened to me, but instead of at a bar, we were playing Never Have I Ever at my church's youth group. A girl stood up and said, "Never have I ever smoked funny leaves," looked right at me, who had confided in her that I'd tried it once, months ago, and when I didn't stand up, told the entire youth group and pastor that I smoked funny leaves. The game ended very quickly that day. Story 8. I had a new boy in the office who had no idea of what personal hygiene consists of. Not a great start. He was loud and obnoxious, not even good at his job. Then one day, at the smoking shelter, he starts talking about catching rabbits in traps. He's pointing to fields around the building and saying he's going to ask for permission to put traps out there. We laughed. For all the crap he talked, not one of us took him seriously. When we go back inside, he heads straight to the cubicle of our office manager. This cubicle is adorned with pictures of rabbits. Some are her pets, some are just rabbits she thinks are cute. She has statues, rabbit pens, and pencils. Nobody in their right mind would have asked this woman in this cubicle about going and trapping rabbits. But he did. I was surprised he made it to the end of the day. I was not surprised when he didn't return the day after. Story 9. I worked for a grocery store, big chain one, probably the first one that comes to mind. I was bagger/cart wrangler. There was this one overweight blonde woman, see Karen, who would come in all the time and cause no end of chaos. Examples of her include buying a 15-pound turkey. She came in complaining it tasted bad and wanted to return it. She presented a platter with an empty carcass, save for one piece of meat on one bone. She bought like a $37 plant, did not water it, showed up with it a year and 6 months later, dead as a doornail, demanding a refund. She bought a grill, used 10 gallons of gasoline as fuel, caused an understandable fire/explosion, came back with receipt and charred grill, demanding a refund. I could go on. This would be a weekly, if not bi-weekly happening. It got to the point where many cashiers would see her enter the store, turn off their light, and leave. Now, when I say she made a fuss, I'm not talking your normal, I want to speak to your manager type deal. Oh no, she would rant and rave, throw herself on the floor, roll around, throw things, call the police, 87 times that I witnessed. I kept count, and pull out her cell phone filming herself being a to report us to the media. She was eventually banned from the store. This took years. I heard stories that she began doing the same thing to our neighbor branch 7 blocks down the road. Ugh, it's honestly baffling how someone like that woman could continue causing havoc without any serious consequences for such a long time. I really feel for the employees who had to deal with her outrageous behavior so much. It's a shame that she managed to take advantage of the store's policies and create distress for those around her. I'm glad she was finally banned from the store, but it's disheartening to think that she's probably causing the same issues at another location. Dealing with people like her really challenges the patience and resilience of customer service workers. Story 10. This just happened to me a few days ago. I was walking my dog, who is not child-friendly, and we were coming up on a woman and her small child. I could tell the kid was going to make a beeline for my dog, so I crossed to the other side of the street so there wouldn't be any issues. This lady yells, "What? My kid can't pet your dog?" As if her kid was just entitled to touch any dog she wanted to. I said, "He's not good with kids, sorry." And she yelled back, "Whatever, b-." I was stunned, honestly. Thought about that interaction the rest of the walk. But had I just let her kid come up to my dog, that kid probably would have gotten bitten. Story 11. This only happened a few days ago. I was called into the manager's office and got offered the temporary clothing manager position. I didn't necessarily want a manager's position, but I had basically been doing the job for months without the benefits, so I accepted it. Went onto the shop floor and was immediately greeted with congrats from colleagues. A girl I work with that had recently become a duty manager, how she became a manager is beyond me, went and told my business to everyone, including the fact that she had been offered the job first and turned it down, so that's why it was handed to me. Everyone knew I was being offered the position before I did. 15 minutes later, I'm approached by a different manager saying there's an issue with putting me on the system, but they're trying to rectify it. For the next 2 hours, I listened to the girl telling everyone and anyone how hard she is going to have it, and that she will now have to cover the clothing department as well as her own department. She told colleagues, friends, and even customers who didn't even ask. She made my business known to everyone. Eventually, I was brought into the office and officially told that I wouldn't be the clothing manager. The boss missed a deadline to put me on the system. The manager apologized profusely, and I went back out on the floor to hear the new DM telling my story yet again. Longest shift ever. Story 12. I was at an ATM getting money. As a habit, I covered the keypad while typing the PIN. You could never be sure there weren't any cameras around. Out of nowhere, this bitch at the next ATM said to me, "Do you think people would peek at your PIN?" I was startled. It's a basic courtesy to not interfere with others doing their business at ATMs. I turned to her and asked her, "Are you serious?" She had an indignant look and contempt as if I accused her of stealing the PIN and said, "Why are you covering the PIN?" I was taken aback and retorted, "If you weren't looking, how do you know I covered the PIN?" She huffed and puffed and left. It's always surprising when someone invades your personal space like that, especially at an ATM where privacy is so important. Covering the keypad while entering your PIN is a smart and cautious move, so I don't understand why that woman felt the need to comment on that. It's definitely an unwritten rule that we should respect others' privacy when they're handling their finances. I'm glad you stood your ground and questioned her about it. Story 13. I used to be the community admin for an online game about a decade ago. And there was a guy who was permabanned who kept making new accounts to protest his ban on the official forums and get people to try and rally behind him to unban him or put malicious links to scam people. Our GM staff was largely outsourced, so I did most of the forum moderation on my own. He had obvious and telling posting habits and horrendous grammar, so it was usually easy to know if it was him, and a quick check of an IP address to verify, and the account was usually banned and posts deleted where appropriate. Well, this idiot one day, using a bunch of different accounts, I'm not even sure why, banning was easy on my end, and he made like 20 messages supporting himself, all that logging in and out. Made a long chain of posts trying to deliberately bribe me out in the open to unban his account. Not even a private message, just straight up in a new thread offering me cash to do so. For one, I started the job as a player, recruited for my honesty and ethics as a whole in the community. It wasn't happening, and the cash was negligible in what I was being paid. Second, how dumb does one have to be to think someone would accept a deal like that with everyone watching? Or did he think I would be so stupid to fall for something like that in blackmail by showing any sign of interest? I had the webmaster IP block him after that, since he was using a static IP, and left the thread open for posterity to prove the point. Story 14. I used to work for my roommate's mom and stepdad, doing insulation work in crawl spaces and attics. My pay was set up so I always got paid the same amount no matter how many hours I worked, which was ridiculous because I almost always worked at least 40 hours a week. Anyway, one day my boss collected the pay for a job early and told us we had to finish that day, which initially was fine. A 14-hour workday later, I felt it was considerably less fine. But I did it and didn't voice a single complaint. The next day, I called to tell them I was going to wrap up early. I had reached a good stopping point, and it was only 2 hours early. She proceeds to tell me that she was going to dock my pay for the week if I leave before 4, and I calmly explained how I just worked 14 hours the previous day, I have a life, and I need to have time to wash clothes, buy groceries, etc. She then says to me that maybe I should have gotten the job done quicker on the previous day if I knew I had things to take care of. It was at this point that I about lost it. Like, did you think I was just hanging out in this man's crawl space, having the time of my life? The icing on the cake is I drove over to talk about it with them, and we agreed I should be paid hourly, and they proceeded to cut my hours to 25 to 30 for 3 weeks. I quit shortly thereafter. Please leave your story down below in the comments. I would absolutely love to make a video about them in the future. And also don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.